Good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime Coaching. My name is Kevin Britz, international leadership coach, trainer, and leadership programs facilitator, host of the Lunchtime series, where we add value to people's lives, happening every day at 12 o'clock on ebizradio.com. Today we're chatting about confidence and how to gain more self-confidence. And my very special guest joining me today, mindfulness training facilitator and personal transformation specialist, Angela Hardy. Angela, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, Kevin. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you for making some time to chat to us today.
Pleasure.
So, Angela, tell us, to kick off today, don't you want to just tell people who you are, what you do, and give us some background, and then just maybe tell us about confidence and what we're going to be chatting about?
Okay. Well, I do mostly personal transformation, which means that I spend my time teaching people how to love themselves, have self-esteem, have self-worth, have a sense of themselves that feels good inside. And part of that is, the real reason for that is that I spent my entire life seeking, searching for, looking to gain that feeling inside of me that felt like I was enough, that felt like I could feel good, that felt like I could move through the world in a smooth, easy, comfortable, successful, beautiful way, instead of this constant sense of driving upstream all the time, which is what it felt like to me at the time. I mean, I don't know if you know that feeling, Kevin, but it's like it's push and push and push and push, and everything seems so hard and everything seems like it's against you, and you feel like you're just like, life is so difficult. And so I spent my life looking for a way to feel good and trying to find that methodology that would help me to live in this world in a way that was calm and peaceful and happy, with a sense of myself that was really strong and enough.
Yeah.
And I can tell you honestly that I was very badly misdirected most of that search. And I find that that is true for my clients too, is that we're looking for a way to be better, and we're looking to become better so that we will feel better. And it really doesn't matter how hard you push to become better so that you'll feel better. You never find it through that methodology. You don't find it through wealth. You don't find it through success. You don't find it through being better at something. It's just completely misdirected. And it was only when I came across something called the 3 principles, which is my understanding of how does the mind actually work to create from the inside out rather than from the outside in, which is what it always felt like to me and to everybody else, that I started to see, I'm generating this experience for myself. The whole experience is being generated within myself. And by virtue of that, this bad feeling that I've constantly got, this stretch, this strain, this pushing against life, is actually being generated by me. And the only thing that I need to do in order to not have that experience and to have a sense of myself that is enough and strong and confident and worthy and amazing is to actually not generate the bad feeling inside and return to the natural state, which is actually feeling quite peaceful, calm, and fabulous.
You make it sound so easy.
Yeah, sure. 25 years of stress. It was no difficulty at all. But you know what? It was only hard work because I was so misdirected when I worked so hard for it. Once I understood, it wasn't instantaneous because I needed to practice awareness. I needed to start to see things and have insights about where I had misunderstood life. But it wasn't difficult either. Whereas before, life had felt very difficult to me. This was just a matter of becoming more awake and more aware. And as each time I became more awake and more aware, I had a greater sense of myself. And so it wasn't difficult either.
Yeah, I find it, I made a note here saying the upstream that you're talking about. There's I'm sure you probably know Esther Hicks, more famously known as Abraham Hicks on YouTube, often speaks about paddling upstream. And as we paddle upstream, it just feels like it's never ending and it's just difficult and you never get there.
Yeah.
And her advice to just stop paddling and just go with the stream and change direction.
Turn out the damn streams in Oxbow, and you're going to end up in the same place if you just get on your little inner tube and start winding down river.
Yeah. So one of the things that I find really interesting is in terms of what it is you do. You use different methodologies, one being NLP, kinesiology. How do you, and just to touch on it, how do you use that to And why are those types of models really effective in what it is you do?
Well, the reason that they're so effective is that the problem that we have when we're looking to find that sense of ourselves that's enough is not that we're not enough. It's that we've got a lot of belief systems and sabotage programs and misunderstandings that are sitting in our unconscious mind from way back early in our childhood, and they've been developing and they've been growing, and our mind has been looking for proof of them and constantly seeking this understanding. How do I get on in the world? How do I survive? How do I get the love I need? How do I feel good inside? And so it's developed this whole series of misunderstandings, this whole series of preferences, a whole series of things have to happen, that have to be okay for me in order for me to then be okay myself. And so in order to get to this place where you don't have that problem, you actually have to do an unlearning. You have to find the misunderstandings, and you have to see that they are misunderstandings. And in that seeing that they are misunderstandings, change the way the unconscious mind works in relation to that. And so with the use of kinesiology in particular, it's a super, super powerful, very, very, very quick way of actually reprogramming the whole mind-body system, especially the way that the unconscious mind processes information. So for instance, if we have a belief system, we've got a lot of energy towards something that we believe to be true. And we can actually reprogram the body to take energy away from that belief and give energy to a new belief. And that changes the way that our unconscious does life. And since we're doing life mostly from our unconscious, it's really important to change that. We need our unconscious to be running the show in the way that works for us, instead of this constant like, oh, I'm not enough, I feel terrible, I feel misdirected, I feel lack of confidence. We want our unconscious to know that we're okay. And so the kinesiology is a super, super quick way of identifying misunderstandings, sabotage programs, belief systems, and of actually changing them on a hard physiological level and an energetic level and an emotional level. And that causes a very, very quick response and a very quick change in the way that we do life. And it's really cool to see, as my clients come and go from week to week, we'll work on something, and a week later they'll come to me and they'll say, I don't know what you did, but and then they'll tell me the story about how they had this experience, and previously they would have responded in this way, and this time they were just able to sit back and go, oh, that's interesting. So it's really exciting to see how quick it is. And NLP also works in that way.
Yeah. So and that's sort of, as you're talking, I'm just kind of connecting the dots, and so that's essentially the topic of what we're talking about today is confidence. And one of the things that you mentioned in the information that you've shared with us is talking about confidence, but what that is and the illusions of I have to be more confident. Don't you want to give us preface how we what that means and why we have this innate kind of need to be more than I am?
Well, I think my own theory is that we're born helpless, right? So we're this little baby, and we know instinctively that in order to survive, we need to get the love that we need from our parents, because they're going to keep us alive. Otherwise, we're going to die. And so our first thing that we have to get right is that we have to engage with other people in a way that gets them to love us so that we will survive. And then we put this very, very strong emphasis on, what do other people think about me? And we're constantly looking at the world through this filter of, what do other people think? Am I okay in their eyes? Do I look all right to them? Am I doing the right thing? Am I enough for them? And it puts a lot of doubt in us about who we are and our enoughness and what we have to be. And we keep guessing, we don't know what other people actually want from us. Mostly they don't really care and they don't want anything. But we keep guessing, well, what do they want? What do they want? And we are the ones that then decide, what is it that Kevin needs from me in order for Kevin to love me? And then we start second guessing ourselves. Do I have that? Am I enough? Is it sufficient? And then we constantly give ourselves this feedback message that says, I'm not sufficient. And then we go to school, and then it's just success and failure, black and white. You know what I mean? If you don't do it, then the teachers don't love you, you're in trouble for that one too. So, and then you keep learning this idea that it's true, I have to succeed. I have to succeed. Failure is not an option. And I think that is possibly one of the single worst things that our schooling does to us, is teach us that failure is not an option, because the common noun of failure is success. You can't get there without one or two epic failures and a whole bunch of mini failures along the way, right? So we keep learning in our society, get what you need from the outside in, and failure is not an option. And so we start to lose our sense that we, in our own right, are a fully formed human being and there is nothing more required from us. And we start to lose our sense that I can be and do and show up in this world in absolutely any way I please and be comfortable and confident in that. And so what do we start to do? We start looking always from the outside in. Did I do enough? Have I shown up enough? Have I got enough awards? When I get those things, when people compliment me, most people just go, oh, well, that doesn't count, right? It doesn't count. Yeah. So I went to all this great effort, pushed upstream to get your approval. And when you say, right, great job, Ange, it's like, oh, no, well, that doesn't count. It was too easy. And so we keep giving ourselves this convoluted, conflicted message that says, it doesn't matter how well I do, I'm moving the goalpost all the time. Yeah. And so I think that this is where it comes from. Our lack of confidence, we think, is because I'm not the best. I'm not perfect. I don't show up in the world in this way that everybody can look at and know that I am 100% competent. And the truth of the matter is that we are not 100% competent. We never will be 100% competent. We're always learning and growing. So our lack of confidence comes from this idea that we have to be confident to the outside, that we have to be perfect at everything, that we have to show up in a way that never fails. But we know that that's not possible. And so we keep with this internal rhetoric that says to us, I'm going to fail. Am I enough? What's going to happen? How are they going to feel about me? What's that person thinking about me? What's going on? And this conversation, this internal rhetoric says to us, you're not okay. Keep pushing, keep pushing. You're not okay. Keep pushing. Now, if we could understand that and we could start to see, actually, it's the conversation in my mind. It's the way that I interpret my life, the filter through which I see all my experiences, the way that I make sense and meaning of the things that happen to me. That is where my sense of self comes from. So if I want confidence, I have to change the way that I look at my experiences. I don't have to change my experience. I have to change the way I interpret my experience. I don't have to change the way that the experience worked or what you think about me. And it's in that process that I can start to see myself as sufficient. And I have to change my belief systems that in order to be enough, certain things have to be in place. Perfection, never failing, all of that jazz, right? And if I can change that belief system that it's okay to be the flawed individual I am, and that I'm safe as the flawed individual I am, I'm secure and I'm lovable as the individual that I am, then I can go into any situation, regardless of my skill level. And I can say to you, maybe I'm not super skilled at this, but I'm sure as hell willing to give it a try. And I'm pretty good at giving things a try. So let's go. And suddenly life is this amazing adventure. And we can have this adventure of, let's go, let's see what we can do.
I just want to, as you're talking, I just want to sort of pose questions, because I know, a lot of people out there are going to, well, what does that mean? So, and how do I wrap my brain around that? That's one of the reasons why people possibly struggle with accepting compliments. Yeah. So, when someone goes, yeah, that was good, you kind of go, well, what is that it? Like, and then you kind of go, okay, well, maybe I should have done better, and you would have been more impressed somehow. And the second thing is, do you also find that a lot of the time we have an external measurement of, an external measurement of success, always. And because that, I measure my success according to how people respond, or how much money, or where I'm going, where I'm traveling, how my Instagram looks, whatever those things are externally. And yet, when those things fail, or if those things don't turn out like I want, suddenly I go, I don't have confidence, and I'm worthless, and I don't, it didn't work out, and now I just feel like the earth could swallow me. Yeah. So essentially, the inner work really, or confidence in itself, is not an external locus of reference that you're using. It's more of an internalized one.
Exactly. And the fact of the matter is that for me, it was the realization of how little control I had in the world was such a big awakening for me. I mean, when I realized that I can't control what's going on with our government, right? I can't control what's going on with the American government, which everybody is so intensely invested in at the moment. I can't control what's happening with you. I can't control what's happening with somebody else. I can't control whether you like what I'm doing, whether you don't like what I'm doing. I can shift it, I can change it, I can keep working on it, I can manipulate it, I can maneuver it. I can have this adventure of keep putting myself out there and seeing what works, what doesn't work, what works, what doesn't work. But I can't control anything except the merest slither of my effort and energy that I put out into the world. I don't even control my own heart or my breathing or my gut. How am I supposed to control what you think of me, right?
Yeah.
It's impossible. So if I stop worrying about that, then I can just show up. And if I can just show up and know that that is who I am and what I am, but I'm not worried about the rest, then I can show up with confidence. Then I can see life in this slightly different frame. And that frame is, well, let's try, let's see. It's an adventure. And it's okay to fail. And it's okay to succeed. And oh, that was a nice compliment. Oh, I feel good about that. Cool. Instead of, oh, that was a nice compliment. If only he knew the truth, he wouldn't be saying that. Now I've got to live up to what he thinks I am. Oh, woe is me. Now I'm even less confident. Because that's what happens, isn't it?
So where in simplicity, like where does confidence really come from? If you had to give us that sort of takeaway, where does it come from? Because the conversations I've had with people is people often make that reference that, if I get reassurance from my parents or if I get reassurance from my colleagues or peers, because of that, I feel more confident. And it's
5 seconds. For all of 5 seconds, right?
Yeah, and it's nice, but what if they don't approve? Like, what if they say something opposite to that? And you kind of go, no, okay, now I don't have confidence.
Well, it's worse than that.
What essence is it?
It's worse than that because they'll approve because you've reached this wonderful level. But then next time they expect you to reach that level. So now you have to be better. And then when you reach that, maybe they'll say, well done. But they're expecting you to be amazing because you proved to them you're amazing. So they're not going to say you're amazing every 5 minutes. So you get it a couple of times and then you just stop getting it. So that hard work method of getting it from the outside in really doesn't work because you just stop getting it because people are like, well, I expect nothing less of you, my darling. Of course you're amazing. Off you go, And you're thinking, oh, if only you knew how I sweated for this, So where does it really come from? It comes from 2 basic places. One, and possibly the single most important one, is what is my internal dialogue doing? And the way to do this for yourself and to find out what your internal dialogue is doing and to help yourself in this regard is you have to develop a sense of awareness. And awareness is essentially that part of your brain that sits in, spiritually they call it the higher seat of consciousness. But it kind of sits in the back here and it watches the chatter. So you've got the monkey brain just yada, 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 yada. And you've got the part of your brain that hears this yada and listens to it. And you've got the part of the brain that watches this bit that's yatting and this bit that's listening and is standing aside and separate from it and saying, what's going on in this little soup over here? And that part of the brain, that place of awareness, conscious awareness, that is actually who we are.
Yeah.
And if we could wake that part of us up by just paying attention, that's all you have to do is pay attention to what's going on. Be mindful of the chatter. Be mindful of the feeling that comes up and notice that that feeling is generated by your chatter. Whether that chatter is conscious or unconscious, it has to have been generated by your thinking. You cannot have feeling that's not generated by your thinking. And so as you start to grow the sense of awareness, you start to grow a sense of yourself that says, I know that this is chatter. And I'm not paying attention to that. And I'm not feeding it. And I'm not going down that rabbit hole. So when I see this kind of chatter comes up that says to me, you're not enough, and oh, what's wrong with you, and blah, 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 I go, okay, thank you for sharing, moving right along. And so I don't spend my time with my focus on that kind of idea.
Yeah.
And so that's the first thing is, what is happening to the chatter, conscious and unconscious? You know that you've got chatter because you've got feeling, and you can only generate feeling through thinking. It's not coming from the outside in. That is an illusion. And the second thing is that you've got to start to identify some of the belief systems and the sabotage programs, which are kind of one and the same, more or less, that keep you stuck. So, for instance, there'll be belief systems that say, I have to beat myself up to do better. Okay, so that's why people are so self-judgmental, so hurtful to themselves, so mean and abusive to themselves, because if I don't beat myself up, I won't do better. I'll be sitting on the couch eating potato chips and watching Netflix all day. So I've got to be harsh with myself. I've got to be rude with myself. I've got to tell myself that I'm a bad person, and so that I can make myself a better person. And that belief in its own right, which is complete garbage, rests on the belief that I have to be a better person to feel good. And so there's no point even solving that belief. You have to solve the underlying belief, which is to feel good about myself, I have to be a better person, which is also a misunderstanding. So we have to start to look at what are the actual beliefs that we're holding to be true. And there's many of them. Those are just two of them. If I think that I have to be a better person to be good, I'm always looking to see how I'm not a better person. If I'm always looking to see how I'm not a better person, I'm always going to see where I fail and where I fall down and how I'm not a better person. I'm always going to be pushing to be a better person. And the experience that I have of me, not a great person. How am I going to get confidence out of that? How am I going to get confidence out of having an abuser in my head? We all know if you're in an abusive relationship, you're going to lose some sense of yourself. Well, are you in an abusive relationship inside your own head? So it's the belief systems and the sabotages that sit underneath this that we need to start to identify and see. And we have a lot of beliefs about everything. And as we start to see, well, something's not working for me, we need to know that's a symptom. Quit looking at the symptom. Don't worry about the symptom. The symptom actually is irrelevant except as a pointer to the fact that you hold something to be true that creates a sort of a loop in which that symptom keeps appearing. So if you're a person who lacks confidence, that is a symptom of belief systems about who you think you have to be able to be enough. It's not a symptom of not being good at stuff.
Yeah.
So don't worry about trying to gain more confidence by going out into the world to be good at stuff. You need to gain more confidence by seeing that you are creating the cycle of I'm not enough inside your own mind. That's how you find confidence.
So one of the things that that you shared with me was the unconditional self-love. Working with clients, don't you want to just touch on that? And I think a lot of people, and I'm making a gross assumption here, but when men hear that kind of language, they find like, what is a self-love like? Yeah, I'm like, what do you like? Don't be all mushy.
Oh, I'm a man. That's girly stuff.
And invariably, as humans, we are emotive, and we have emotions for reasons. They're there. They indicators. They show up. They drive. They help. They indicate so much in what our lives are doing. And when we don't recognize them, or where we push them aside, that in itself becomes debilitating to helping gaining confidence. So, from your perspective, tell us more about the self-love and what it does for an individual.
Okay.
Because I think it's really beautiful.
We could call it unconditional self-regard or unconditional self-acceptance, but actually the most important word is the unconditional part. Yes. Whatever the one that comes after it. Because this is the way I describe unconditional self-love, right? Do you have any pets, Kevin?
Do I have any pets?
Pets.
Yes, I've got two little dogs, yeah.
All right, so you know how it is with your dog, right? You get your dog and you determine that you're going to love this dog. The dog doesn't have to do anything for you to love it, right? It's not necessarily obedient. Sometimes it craps in the house. Sometimes it throws up on your carpet. Sometimes it brings its muddy paw prints in.
Yes.
The dog is not perfect in any way, shape, or form, but you have determined that you're going to love this dog. And so even when you're not loving its behavior, you still know that you love it. You still have a care and a kindness and a regard and an acceptance and a willingness to be fully loving of that creature. And somehow it's easy with animals because we don't expect more from them. We don't think, oh, well, you have to be perfect for me to love you, which is what we do to ourselves.
Yeah.
So for me, that is like the best description of unconditional love. I love you even when you're chucking on my carpet. And so this is what I think is the end goal of everything for us, because what we're all looking for is the good feeling inside. All of this work, all of us making money, all of us putting ourselves out there, all of us trying to build a career and a family and raising children if you have children, and whatever it is that you're about, trying to be the best at your sport, whatever it is, we're all looking for a good feeling inside. And that good feeling is that place of unconditionality. It's not that place of perfection or enoughness, place of always unconditionality. So sometimes I behave in a way and I think to myself, oh my word, you are such a ditz. I cannot believe this. But I love myself anyway. Because what am I going to do? If I'm a ditz, I'm a ditz. You know what I mean? It's not tough luck, you know? And sometimes I fail epically and I'm like, whoa, okay, would have loved to have done without that epic failure. But I love myself anyway because I have determined and insisted on and given myself permission. And that's the big word, really, more than anything. Permission to love myself anyway when I'm epically bad at something and when I'm really, really marvelous at something. I choose love anyway. And that's where the good feeling comes from. And it seems to be one of the hardest things and almost the most unnatural thing that we can do in our society, from the way that we're raised and the way that we're taught to move through society. It's just not taught to us. And I think that is probably the single greatest pity of our lives, is that we're not taught to love ourselves unconditionally from the moment we're born. And it's not a question of, I love myself unconditionally, so I don't have to do anything and I don't have to put myself out there. Far from it. What's so interesting about that is that we put ourselves out more because we can't be hurt by being put out.
Yeah.
We challenge ourselves more because it's exciting and it's interesting and it's wonderful and life's an adventure when we challenge ourselves. And so instead of it being, I put myself out there because I'm afraid that I'm not enough. And so I live in this constant angst and hard feeling in my belly and fear of failure, of not being enough because I'm desperately trying to find some way. It's more like, I know that I'm enough. Now what's the adventure of life?
Yeah.
And that's unconditional self-love.
You know, I love that because I often do a lot of training, and one of the you know, specific to this point, one of the questions I always ask is, as a side note, guys, who's the most important person in your world? I'm like, quickly write a list, and they invariably like,
yeah.
all the important, and you kind of go, okay, so who's your number one person? And when you ask people, specifically in a training session, they never put their own names. People never. Well, I'm important. My kids are important. My partner, or whatever that. It is always someone else.
Yeah.
And it's just a case of going, bring it back. You know, how do you bring it back to, no, there's a moment that you really have to self-recognize. You have to pay attention to you and how you're doing and what that means to you and what meaning you're giving it for yourself, rather than having an external kind of frame the whole time, right? But in terms of tips, what is the top tip in creating self-confidence immediately? And I like the word immediately. So that out there, you can do it now.
Wow, now, okay. So okay, the first thing that you can do now is pay attention to the chatter inside your head and give yourself 100% commitment to treat yourself in the way that you treat your most beloved pet, your most beloved friend, your most beloved, the thing that you love the most in the world, that you are absolutely willing to give most care and gentleness and consideration and encouragement and upliftment and all the stuff that you would do for the person that you love the most. And it's so much easier, like if you're thinking about doing it for a pet or a child, because there's no conditions. You know, we have a lot more conditions when it comes to our health.
Yeah.
But if you can think of yourself as, if you kind of think about reparenting yourself almost, think about yourself as you're just that little child inside of yourself desperately seeking happiness. That's all you are. And just because you're an adult and you know stuff that you didn't know when you were a child doesn't mean that you don't have to care for yourself in the way that you'd care for a child who's just looking to be happy. And so care for yourself in that way. So that would be my first piece of advice.
Yeah.
Quick sticks. Pay attention to the chatter in your mind. And when you hear yourself not caring for yourself in that way, you just say to yourself, oops, sorry, darling. I wouldn't treat you like that. I take it back. And that literally, I say that to myself. I'll be on the badminton court and I'll go, you moron. I'll be like, oh, I'm sorry. I said I would never treat you like that. Do you know what I mean? So pay attention. Pay attention to what you're doing inside your own head. And then the second thing is stop believing that your feelings come from the outside in. And start to see, if you can, how much you're generating your feelings and how much extra chatter you've got going on that is completely separate from the truth of what's happening outside of you. All the meaning you're making of something, all the stories you're telling yourself about something, all the way that you're expanding this knowledge, all the trouble you're borrowing from the past, all the worry you're borrowing from the future, all of the stuff that you're making up. Start to notice that. Awareness is your friend. The greater you can grow awareness, the better off you'll be. And that's why they teach meditation and mindfulness, because they're trying to teach you to look at your mind in action. But they don't necessarily tell you what you're looking for. So I'm telling you what you're looking for. When bad feeling comes along, that is a warning. It's like, wah, wah, wah. Pay attention. What is the chatter? That chatter is not necessarily true. In fact, it's almost never true.
And on that note, like, feelings are such beautiful indicators. You know, if something, and I often have those moments, and I often teach this as well, is when I'm having a moment and I leave a conversation and I'm suddenly feeling agitated or angry, and I kind of notice the feeling, and I backtrack and I go, okay, where did that start? Like, and I go back in the moment to what happened, what just happened in the last hour, or what happened in the last 2 hours or the last day. And I'm going, yes, okay, I know where that started. And then I know immediately by paying attention to that feeling, emotion, that indicator, I'm like, okay, this is, and I think so many people don't. They don't have this, they're not aware of it, or they haven't learned it, or they dismiss it as, things that other people do. It's not me. And invariably, if you're a human being, you're probably going to have a human emotion.
Oh yeah. Probably a lot of human emotions all day long.
That's so fantastic. Angela, thank you. Thank you for taking some time to chat to me. That was such a wonderful conversation. If we want to get hold of you, where do we go? And tell people, like, hit me up here. Where do we go there?
Okay, well, you can't miss it because my name is Angela, so I'm like a little angel floating on. Where does the angel float? On cloud 9. So my business is called Cloud 9. My name is Angela Hardy. Angela at cloud-9.co.za or info@cloud-9.co.za. And my website also www.cloud-9.co.za.
Amazing. Angela Hardy, thank you for joining me on Lunchtime Coaching. We definitely need you to have more conversations, and I invite you back to come do some more. Please, thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been a sweet pleasure talking to you.
Thanks so much, and chat to you soon. Cheers.
Cheers.